We've done it. We've arrived at the last problem. And really, I saved the grand finale for last. Okay? This is quite the problem. If you remember in class, we did a little review activity, and I might have mentioned that this type of problem is like the beef Wellington of writing equations, right? It's multi-step. You got to have some technique, and at the end, it's got to taste good. Okay? That that metaphor doesn't directly apply, but that's okay. Really, what we have to do here is our goal is just to write an equation. Okay, that's it. We're just trying to write a linear function, a linear equation, but all we're given is 2 points. Okay, as it turns out, that's all we need. All we need are 2 points. Okay. And here's the steps. Here's what you're going to want to do if you see this type of problem. Okay. So, first things first, we have to figure out the slope, right? Because we need the slope and the y-intercepts to figure out a function. Or if we can figure out the slope and we know a point, then we can use the slope point form, okay? So the first thing we have to do, the common thing in both of those is finding the slope. So let's do that. We have to use the slope formula to find the slope. Okay, and so we've used it 3 times so far on this review, which is a good indicator that you should have it on your note sheet. Okay, the slope formula, once again, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, basically that means change in y over change in x, right? So if I look at my 2 points that they give us, I can break it down and say, well, 4, that's an x value, and it's in fact the first x value that I see. This negative 6 is a y value, and it's the first one I see. So this must be x2, and this must be y2. Okay? And from there, you can just plug this in, and you might have to do a little bit of, fancy simplification, whatever, but it's just math. Okay? Just math. And so basically what we have here is y2 is 10 minus negative 6, right? Minus y1, which was negative 6. All of that over 2 minus 4. Okay? Remember, anytime you see minus a negative number, that becomes add, right? Minus a negative is add. So this in total becomes 10 plus 6 over 2 minus 4, which is 16 over negative 2. Okay? Now, I talked about this a little bit on Monday. Maybe I did. I don't know. But negatives with fractions is a little weird. All you have to really do is count the number of negatives there are. Okay? If there's just 1 in your fraction, then, well, that means it's a negative number. But as soon as you have 2, then they start canceling out. And so really, when I go to simplify this, I know that 16 divided by 2 is 8. So 16 divided by negative 2 is just negative 8. Okay, and that is my slope. So negative 8 is now my slope. And in fact, we now have enough information. Well, we had enough information, but now we can just directly use the slope point formula. Okay, so our next step, I guess that will be my first step, is to plug the slope and 1 point into the slope point formula. Oh, something happened there. Slope point formula, right? As the name implies, slope point works well when you have a slope and a point. Here is the form for slope point. And you're also going to want this on your note sheet because this one's a little harder to remember. Okay, this one goes like this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so this is a little throwback, a little callback to when m used to mean slope. Okay, and in fact, it still does. So m is still your slope here. And then you leave the y's, the variables without any numbers, like the y1 or just the y and the x. You leave those be, but your y1 and x1 become these numbers, right, from your point. So if I were to plug this in, if I were to plug my point and my slope in, here's what I would get. I leave the y, but I go minus -6, right? That's from this up here. That's from y1. Equals, my slope was -8, so -8 times x minus 4, right? That is from this 4 right here. So keep in mind, I'm always subtracting, which might lead to a double subtraction in the case of on the left side of our equation here. And now we just have to simplify, okay? So we have to distribute and simplify. Meaning, I need to multiply this -8 into my parentheses, and then I need to get this 6 over to the other side, okay? But first things first, I know that y minus -6, well, minus a negative turns to a plus, equals -8 times x is just -8x, and then -8 times -4 is positive 32, right? 8 times 4 is 32, and then a negative times a negative becomes a positive. So that's what we get here. That's the right side. The only thing we have to do now is get this 6 over to the right, right? So we just have something y equals ax plus b or mx plus b. And so I have to subtract 6 from both sides. And that will leave me with y equals, because these cancel, all right? Y equals -8x, and then 32 minus 6 is plus 26. And here we go. That is the linear equation of a line that passes through these points, okay? So yes, this is a lot of work, and this is the most sort of algebra thing that you would see. In fact, we're going to do a lot more solving and manipulating algebraic equations in the next topic. But this really has to do with linear functions and lines, which is part of this topic's standards, okay? So using the slope formula, finding the slope, and then plugging it into the slope point form. But here's the things that I would write down. I'll circle them or box them in black. These are the things that you want on your note sheet, right? These are hard. These are basically, you have to just remember them. But they're easy enough when you know what to plug in and you can simplify it out, okay? And that concludes the review. That's 9 problems, okay? Now, here's what I would do if I were you. If you've been watching all the videos, hi, welcome. If you've made it to this point, drop a like, leave a comment as you do. Share this with 3 of your... No, don't do that. But now what I want you to do is, if you have a note sheet, if you've done and watched these problems and looked at my notes on the left, try the problems on your own on the right, okay? If you can get through those, if you feel good about those, I promise you'll have success come the test day, all right? Once again, I'm open by email, Teams message, in person, YouTube comment, whatever it is, to ask any questions. Let me know. But other than that, if we have a great day, start studying. If this is the first test you've ever studied for, welcome. Okay, it'll change your life. But it's also just a math test, so don't be too stressed. Okay, see you then.